Hey everybody, so it's an honor to just get to do a short amount of time with the people I'm about to introduce you to. And many of you know them. It is just a wild time in the world right now. So many big, important things happening, so many moments that are shaping history. And honestly, one of our friends is living right in the middle of the conflict in Iraq. And to imagine that Fallujah has been liberated, and yet there is still this strong force, as you can imagine, as this major city is being ripped out of ISIS's hands. ISIS is putting up a good fight, and the people that have been trapped in that city is just unthinkable that in America we can be a part of helping and touching the lives of people. But the only reason that that is possible is because amazing people are on the ground and able to help and equip leaders of that country with the resources that they need. And so we're a part of that, and we didn't want you to miss the opportunity to join us as we partner once again with Preemptive Love in such an important moment in history. And so let me introduce to you, we threw this live stream together so quickly. Ann Boskamp got the opportunity to travel to the middle of Iraq last year, and so I wanted her to join us and to talk a little bit about Preemptive Love and what she learned when she was on the ground there. And then Jeremy Courtney, who's actually on the ground right now from Iraq, is going to tell us how we can help and be a part of relief to some of the most desperate circumstances in the world. So Ann, why don't we start with you and just talk for a minute about what you got to be a part of when you went over to Preemptive Love.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Jenny. I guess this was 3 weeks after the 21 martyrs were martyred in Libya by ISIS and beheaded. Jeremy invited me over to see what they were doing in Iraq. I spent 4 days with Jeremy's team in Iraq and heard the stories of people who had escaped ISIS, whose families had faced ISIS, women who had seen their husbands and brothers, uncles murdered and shot, killed by ISIS, how they had to choose which child they were going to take as they tried to flee from ISIS. And I guess, Jenny, I was just so struck by the fact that these were middle-class people who were living middle-class, normal lives, whose lives were completely obliterated and destroyed by evil. And what if that had been us? What if that had been us, where we were sitting in our suburban middle-class lives? Who's going to use their voice to say, this has to stop, I'm in this place right now, I can use my voice and the resources at hand to help families that have lost absolutely everything? When you ask these families what they wanted, they said they wanted to go home. And where is home now? And how can the people of Christ be the hands and feet of Christ to those who are fleeing the most incomprehensible dark, Jenny? And I'm just so grateful there are people like Jeremy and Preemptive Love that are on the ground that are saying, you know what, we're called to love our enemies. We're called to love anyways in the face of the greatest evil of our time, and to do what Christ asks us to do. So I'm beyond grateful that Preemptive Love is on the ground, that lets us link arms with them and do what Jesus would ask us to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think my husband told me this morning, Jeremy, that you are one of the only refugee rescue operations still on the ground, and I know that has to be incredibly scary in moments like this. And so why don't you just talk a little bit about what's happening over there right now, Jeremy, and what you see going on in the midst of just really a historic time for Iraq?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you guys so much for putting some attention on this urgent situation right now today. I think to help give some context, it's important to not just use a word that we're all very familiar with, the word Fallujah, but for me to help fill out kind of the import of this moment for us a little bit. This whole thing that we're seeing across the Middle East, from Iraq to Syria on through to Libya and beyond, with ISIS, this ISIS phenomenon, the idea of a caliphate, it all really goes back to Fallujah. That is ground zero for so much of what is going on in and across North Africa and the Middle East today. And it goes back to the last war, where we were here in Iraq during that war, and we were working in and around Fallujah at that time. And so this is not a new thing. It's part of a much larger context, and it calls into question a lot of things that we might hold dear, and a lot of things that we've been doing as an American government or international Western governments. And so I just think it's important to say these things, these crises, 86,000 people stranded in a desert, these don't arise out of nowhere. These are part of history, our decisions. And it's easy to look back and be critical. The most needful thing, I think, for us right now is to look to where our feet are planted today and understand that we are making history. Whether we act one way or another way right now is writing the things that we will then either be celebrating or decrying and bemoaning in the future. And so this is incredibly important for me. We've worked in Fallujah for years. After the American military fought the bloodiest battle it had had since Vietnam in Fallujah, we started working in Fallujah, saving lives at the Fallujah General Hospital. And today, one of our journalist friends was just on the second floor of the Fallujah General Hospital that ISIS had been using as a headquarters. And so where we were saving lives, they are literally in some of the rooms where I met with kids and held kids' hands and prayed with families. ISIS is using that very place, has been using that very place as a headquarters. And so these things all are integrated together. ISIS then metastasized out of Fallujah some years ago and ended up crossing over into Syria and then overrunning the city of Mosul. And now here we are back again today. So over the last couple of months, things have gotten incredibly dire in Fallujah. Under ISIS's control, thousands, tens of thousands of people were starving. And we were paying urgent attention to this. You know, Fallujah has kind of become the byword of Iraq, the byword of the Middle East. And this gets into all kinds of really complicated geopolitics. But essentially, things were so bad under the last government that they dared to even welcome a force as atrocious as ISIS because they felt a little bit safer with ISIS than they felt with the actual government that was supposed to protect them. As a result of siding with ISIS, so to speak, now they have become kind of the throwaways. They let ISIS in. They destroyed our country. ISIS was born there. They are the mothers and the sons and the dogs of ISIS. This is kind of the way that a lot of Fallujahs are characterized or talked about today. And so it's not surprising, and it shouldn't be surprising with that kind of rhetoric then, that we haven't seen a robust international response for Fallujah. The money was easily amassed to destroy ISIS and to destroy Fallujah, but there hasn't been anywhere near the kind of attention and care given to caring for the people of Fallujah in the wake of the battle. And so months ago, when these reports about 50,000 people being starved out by ISIS emerged, we dedicated serious time and effort and resources to trying to figure out how we could feed Fallujah. We worked every angle we could. We worked with the Prime Minister's office. We went to the Speaker of Parliament. We were going to fly airplanes or helicopters and drop aid. We worked to go upstream on the Euphrates River and figure out if we could put civilians themselves had taken small little water bottles and filled them halfway up with rice, just this much rice, and floated it down the river just in hopes that a few of those bottles would reach starving women and children inside the city. We worked with drone manufacturers to see if we could get drones that we could pilot over the city and drop aid to calculated positions. And we just couldn't find a way in. And then about a month ago today, actually, the battle for Fallujah started. And within 3 days, significant gains had been made. 11 villages around Fallujah were liberated, and thousands of people were free. But that also meant that thousands of people were being driven from their homes. And so we went in, we were the first, and to this date still are the only organization that has worked inside that militarized zone. There are some other organizations working in fallback positions, safer positions, camps, and established aid positions. They're doing the best they can. They're absolutely overwhelmed. But there's still thousands and thousands of people inside the militarized zone who are either trapped or stranded or for any number of reasons just don't want to leave their home. It doesn't make them a terrorist. It just means they'd rather die on their plot of land than go die in the desert. The number of people we've met who escaped Fallujah and then said, in a camp, in a safe setting somewhere where we were serving them and giving them food, the number of people who have said something like, it would have been better if ISIS would have killed me than to come out into this desert and die here. They were supposed to rescue us. You guys were supposed to save us. We were supposed to have tents and food and water. We have nothing. It's just been harrowing and overwhelming. I've said a lot. Let me just pause for a minute.
Well, it's unthinkable, and to think, Jeremy, you're in the middle of it with your family, and it is beautiful that you have gone to the front lines. It's where Jesus calls us to be. And I know, Anne, you had a chance to actually face-to-face meet some of these women, and you fell in love with them. Tell us the story of just one woman that you met in Iraq. Who comes to mind when you're hearing these stories?
I think I sat with Suzanne in a shipping container with her children and extended family, sisters who had escaped ISIS. Said that there was 27 people that had tried to cram into a vehicle to escape being beheaded, and deciding which of their children they would take or not take, and not knowing where their children were. She had a 7-year-old boy that she did not know where that child was now at all, hoping that child had found his way to other family, but didn't know. And I just think, I guess, Jenna, I keep coming back to exactly what you were saying, Jeremy. What is it like to escape ISIS, but the desert that you're in now is going to be a worse death in some ways than if a rocket had fell upon your home in Fallujah? And I guess if we sit here and do nothing, we are like the rockets. We are continuing to allow evil to befall on them. Or we can be like ravens, and we can bring bread. And I think that's the choice we have before each of us right now is, are we going to be rockets or ravens? And I think each of us right now in our pockets right now hold a mini miracle. We can choose to put our hands in our pockets and pull out a mini miracle and be a raven for someone caught in the desert, desperate to escape evil, or we are part of the rockets that continue this narrative of evil and hostility and death and dying, and it really is our choice.
Well, I can't believe how easy it was last time, Jeremy, to get aid to people in urgent need. I mean, we watch the news, and for a long time, there's been a disconnect from our seats in our comfortable living rooms to the other sides of the world where we're learning about war. And now, because of the internet and because of people like you, we have these bridges to actually hear something on the news and be able to respond. It's why we immediately, with IF, started thinking, okay, how can we throw up a live stream and how can we get help? Because we can. Because it's not pretend to think that we can actually get food directly to starving people in Fallujah as they are being liberated, but they don't have anything. They're being liberated into a desert. And so what do we do right now, Jeremy? And we're going to keep talking a little bit, but before we lose people, I really want you to just share, how do we help today, right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very simple. Preemptivelove.org/Fallujah. Mm-hmm. Make a donation, and we have stockpiles of food ready to go, and we will start replenishing those stockpiles. We've already delivered 300,000 pounds of food in the desert to people who had nothing, and we have 100,000 pounds ready to go, and that's going out the door in the next couple of days. We're buying massive 5,000-liter water tanks to take out to the camps. We've had Washington Post, New York Times, ABC News, NBC News, BBC, everyone is relying on us for information, intel, access. Everything we're doing, we're carrying out under the careful inspection of journalists, who have no interest in being a propaganda machine for us. If we do something wrong, they're going to call us out on it. And so everything that's happening right now is happening under extreme scrutiny. We're working with Iraqi military. We're working with paramilitary, the Prime Minister's office. There is nowhere to hide. This is all under a microscope and a spotlight all at once. We have a huge volunteer force and a workforce that has been working around the clock through the night. In Baghdad, when the electricity goes out every night in the the Grand Market area where we buy wholesale food, our guys are working through the night by car headlights to pack bags until their car batteries run down. And then they're taking these massive trucks out into the desert and delivering through the day. You can see on some of the images that have made it out onto the wires over the last couple of days, there was a massive sandstorm just a couple of days ago of our work, photos of our work, and our teams are working in the most dire conditions, but the people are living in these conditions. Our guys and our friends get to go home. I mean, they ultimately get back in the truck and drive back to Baghdad at some point. And so preemptivelove.org/Fallujah, and this is how easy it is. It costs us about $35 to feed a family for 2 weeks, about $70 to feed a family for a month. So let me say that more clearly. $65 feeds a family for a month. That's what we're doing. We're taking huge bags of food: rice, flour, lentils, cheese, oil, sugar, everything that they need to survive for the next month, including protein. $65 is what it takes to feed a family. That's a family of about 6, and a lot of times these are elderly women. Our work was covered on the front page of Washington Post yesterday, and it tells stories of, you can find it online, it tells stories of at least 2 or 3 very elderly people in that story, a 90-something-year-old and a 70-something-year-old sitting out in the desert sand with not a shelter over their head, water running out. Tells this terrible story of this one woman that was with us holding her like 10-year-old crippled son who had soiled himself, and there's no water that she can use to even clean him up, and there's shame and embarrassment and a feeling of having let down her family. And a lot of these families have no men left in the family. If the men are alive, they're in detention, essentially, because just by virtue of the fact of their geography, they're being rounded up by security forces and held indefinitely in detention until they can be proven to be innocent. They are guilty until they are proven innocent, essentially. And so you've got 70-year-old women in the desert who can't even they can't pitch their own tent. The number of women that we've seen who take their tents and drag them to some spot and then end up just sitting on top of the tent in 122-degree heat because they can't figure out how to pitch the tent is completely unacceptable and unconscionable. There's just not enough of us, enough aid organizations to help fill in all the gaps right now. And so the money will also help us staff up and get more people going to do more things. The UN is asking us to do more than food right now. We're doing food, we're doing water, but they're asking us to do so many other things. And as the funds become available, we will do them.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy, tell me this. Is there a way to give monthly on the site? Can you sign up to give monthly?
Yes, you can. In fact, that is by far the highest impact thing you can do, not only in this crisis, but there are more crises to come. This is the junior league of what's coming.
Yes.
The city of Mosul is a city of 1 million people, and we are expecting displacements far, far greater than what we're seeing right now. Mosul is what made the news 2 years ago. Whether or not the international community will show up to help Mosul in a couple of months when the battle gets intense is yet to be seen. Christians being persecuted is what made the news 2 years ago. Whether Christians will show up to help Mosul this time around is yet to be seen. So monthly giving ensures that not only can we help today, but we'll also be ready to help in Mosul in a couple of months as well. The average stay, if you become a refugee and get driven from your homeland, the average time that you spend away is 17 years.
Crazy.
17 years. And so while I'm not asking you to become a monthly sponsor for 17 years, I am trying to communicate that these problems don't go away quickly, and we are committed. You know, we've been here. This is our 10th year in Iraq, and we're committed to being here. We have teams getting in or trying to get into Syria right now at the moment. We're engaged on both sides of this issue, and we're not going anywhere.
Listen, this is what I'm thinking, is we keep coming in when there's these huge moments in the news, and I don't want, Jeremy, I mean, you're out there risking your lives, you and Jessica and your family, and you're leading in such an obedient, awesome way. I want you to be taken care of. I want money to be the least thing you have to worry about at night. And if we could each give monthly a little bit, we could make such a dent in this. And I don't feel like it's a wild, crazy thing to take care of the needs of the people right in front of Jeremy. That feels doable. It feels like he's trying to buy rice and water and bread. Like, let's buy the people in front of him rice, water, and bread. They have so little overhead costs, this organization. They are on the ground, and they are able to employ locals and give jobs. They're able to get things in the hands of people that literally have no other hope. No other hope. Like, there's not other organizations in this zone. So we're giving to the only hope that they have. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to feel like we have to keep coming, because what happens is these huge atomic bombs go off and the money gets depleted because they're meeting need, and there's not this regular income coming in. So I know some of you can only give one time, but those of you that can give monthly, let's partner and let's take care of some needs regularly for them so they don't have to be distracted. I mean, right now, Jeremy is going to go be on CNN or the BBC after this, and he's got other things to do than to raise money. And I think we can knock out some of this need that they have. And it's almost like, why would we not? Let's do it. Let's just partner, each of us what we can, and it'll make a dent. It made a dent last time. I mean, Anne, when you wrote that blog, when Christine Kane and others partnered and we threw in together, it made a dent. Jeremy, I feel like that I'm still hearing stories from what happened. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened after the last time we partnered with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. Last time you guys showed up in such a massive way, and we are still investing heavily in the lives of so many of those people. One of the things that Jessica and Anne and Lynn Hybels dreamed about on the way out of the country, as Jessica got on a plane with them and helped take them to Istanbul, was this idea of creating a soap initiative, a handmade, beautiful soap company for these women who were living in shipping containers and tents and who had just experienced so much trauma with the loss of their family members. And I mean, in some ways it seemed beautiful and hopeful, and in other ways it seemed ridiculous and ludicrous that something like this could come out of such suffering. And now, just a couple of months ago, we launched Sisterhood Soap. And it has become already, even in just a couple of months, more than we imagined, helping Syrians and Iraqis of various stripes, of various religions, all of us working together, making this beautiful, handmade, olive oil, Castile-style soap that actually originates in Syria centuries ago. And so the very women that Anne sat with, the very women whose stories Anne told, the very women who have lost so much, now, because of you guys, because of the investments that you made about a year ago this time, when we were asking you to help us empower women, now we've taken your gifts from last year and we've empowered them. And now we're not giving them charity anymore. They're working, they're producing, and we're buying things from them because we need it, because we have customers like you who not only are giving to aid, but you also just want really beautiful soap in your bathroom or your kitchen. And so we're now having to go to them, or getting to go to them, and buy their products. And it's not humiliating, it's dignifying. And they now are providing for their family, providing for their children. And in so many cases, these women never imagined that they would be able to do something like this. And when Jessica went the first time and paid the women for what they had made with their own hands, it was a boon. I mean, they had never held this much money in their hands in their entire life, and it wasn't a gift. It was hard work. We already had made the gift. That was the investment in their soap-making products and some of that stuff. Now this was just a purchase from a very qualified soap maker. We're doing this now in multiple places. We've got candle making that we're starting to get underway. We've got some other initiatives like that. Our Syrian friends are hand knitting these beautiful handmade washcloths that we're going to be sending out your way for Christmas time. We're making this beautiful charcoal style soap that we're going to roll out for Christmas as a lump of coal in your stocking. Beautiful charcoal soap for Christmas. We've distributed thousands and thousands of chickens as a renewable source of income. Now they're selling their eggs, and they're able to sell the chicks off once they grow up for renewable source of revenue. We've given out tens of thousands of dollars in sheep, who have now had sheep and are growing that investment significantly. We've invested in schools and education as a result of what you guys did last year. And so we don't actually consider ourselves a relief organization. We consider ourselves an empowerment organization, a peacemaking organization, a reconciling organization. Showing up in Fallujah is step one. And these monthly gifts will allow us to keep showing up in Fallujah when all the other aid organizations, emergency organizations have gone home. We'll still be there because we were there before all this happened, and we're going to be there after all this happens, and we're going to be helping the women of Fallujah and the children of Fallujah get their education so that they can stand on their own 2 feet and get their life back to normal.
And I think about you right now, and you have a baby girl, and life is very full. It's not easy to hop on a live stream in the middle of the day right now. I remember those days with Cooper when you bring him home. Why don't you just talk a little bit about why you would stop everything that your day holds today for this?
Oh, exactly, Jenny. I had to watch the clock and decide when I was going to give a bottle and think about a nap time for a little baby girl today. But you know what? That little baby girl who is here has a broken heart, and that story started out of my trip into Iraq, and to see Preemptive Love reach out to families that had children with all kinds of heart defects and they needed desperate help. And Jeremy's right. Preemptive Love is an empowerment organization, an organization that goes into people that feel like they've got no choices at all. And he gives them real choices. And I just saw that what they were doing in Iraq, opening their lives and their hearts up to people, we wanted to do that in a way here. So that was Preemptive Love is part of our adoption story right from the very beginning. But you know what, Jenny, I think taking time out in the middle of the day, this was so important because we are Esthers living in the palace. And this isn't about summer vacation for all of us and we all get to kick back and isn't this wonderful? No, you're here where you are right now because you are where you are because there are those outside the gate, 86,000 people in 122-degree heat with no air conditioning and no water and no facilities at all. We're called right now to do whatever it takes. I mean, think about it. $30 a month, $60, $70 a month to feed a family for a whole month. I mean, you can do that with your small group. You can do that with your extended family. Like, there is some way to make that happen. And I think indifference and apathy is what keeps breaking the world up. Indifference can never write us into a different story. So we need to stop being indifferent and turn around, witness what is happening, because people who are made in the image of God deserve the dignity of witness. They deserve us to turn around and to see what is happening and say, I am Esther, called for such a time as now to do whatever it takes for those outside the gate. They're made in the image and likeness of God. And we're going to stand before the Lord and say, I was responsible. I heard, I saw, I knew. There is no such thing as a non-response as a Christian. You are able to make a response. You have a responsibility now to do something. And we all have something in our hand, something in our pocket that we can do to be a raven and stop being rockets and change this story.
Yes. Yeah, I think back to when we used to dream about If Gathering and what we prayed for it and what we hoped for it. And it was this. It wasn't a consumer mentality where we all, enjoy, we sang and we enjoyed worship and it was, no, it was that we would be changed and create change and that we are stronger together. That the force of us across the world is more powerful than each of us on our own with our little piece to give to God. We each bring our little piece to give to God together, and huge things happen. And then we become friends with people like Jeremy, who is being obedient in his place in the world. And it's just, this is not an accident. Like, these are the moments that I believe God has brought us together. This is why. It's not so that we just grow indefinitely till we get to heaven. Like, we're going to be made perfect in heaven. Growing without a purpose is stupid. We don't need to just keep growing. We grow so that we can give away what we've been given. And every single thing we have been given, everything, breath, money, food, health, life, where we live, and who we know, it has all been given by God. In some form, he is the root of all good things. And so if we have something good, we give it away out of delight, not even finding it difficult, because we are overblessed. If you are watching this, you own a computer or a phone, and we are the overblessed ones. We have too much. And so we go to the place where it could just as easily be our kid out there. It could just as easily be us out there. I mean, we had no control over where we were born and where God put us. And yet, there are people like Jeremy running to the darkest places, and they don't have what they need. That's not okay. That is why we are here. Is he needs to have everything he needs to meet the need right in front of him. And so let's do it. Let's just do it. This is easy. We all give what we can, and God multiplies it, and people are saved from death, and they're also saved for eternity, and they're put in their places with jobs and given a hope and a future. And yeah, I just think that's a good way to spend a little money. So let's do it. Let's make a difference. Jeremy, is there anything else? I mean, go to preemptivelove.org/Fallujah. So tell us anything else we are missing, anything else we need to know.
Yeah, preemptivelove.org/Fallujah, or just preemptivelove.org, and that'll get you there as well, so you don't have any spelling problems with Fallujah. Or you can find it from F or our Facebook page or whatever. I'm going to try to share my screen while I say this. It may not work, but I just want you to see an image that has absolutely crushed my heart and given me hope all at the same time. You can speak up if it doesn't work, but this is a little girl that is like so many of our little girls, and we met her in the desert, and she and her family had walked for miles to get out of Fallujah. Like so many others around them, these families are being shot at by ISIS snipers on the roof as they try to leave. They are sneaking through fields in the middle of the night and finding out that ISIS has filled these fields with landmines. There's 28 some people that we've encountered who have been maimed and blown apart, but still alive, going through these minefields. These are the kids who have tried to swim across the Euphrates River and have drowned. And we meet these kids out in the desert and hand them these bags of rice and flour and lentils, and they end up falling asleep on these bags of rice. I mean, it's just, the heat, you know, is so overwhelming that sometimes the only thing they can do to escape is just to cry themselves to sleep. And where we go, things do get better, but we just need to keep going. There's inside this box, one thing that I wanted to tell you to kind of bring your generosity and these stories full circle. Inside these boxes are bars of sisterhood soap. And so the very thing that we started last year to help one group of ISIS victims in one part of the country make money and stand on their own 2 feet, they are now selling so that we can send to other parts of the country, to other ISIS victims who need this soap just to survive in the desert so that disease doesn't spread across these camps. And this is not, again, just charity. This is actually a much more intelligent way to do aid than anything else that's going on right now. Until we started doing this, there was literally no other organization in the country that is using locally produced soap. Everyone else is buying soap from China or Turkey, literally sending hard-earned aid dollars to China. Other countries' economies are benefiting while we have, 4 million people displaced and without jobs inside Iraq and 6.6 million in Syria. And so this is a much more intelligent way to do aid, vertically integrated, employ one group of people, help them bless another group of people, everyone and all ships rise together this way. So I just want you to know that if you come on board and help today, you're really going to become a part of an ecosystem that is not just one-off throwing money down a hole kind of thing. It's a much more integrated way of trying to do everything we can to buy locally and build up the economy and do things as intelligently as we can after having been here for 10 years.
Well, and that's why we love throwing behind you, Jeremy, because you have been there so long and you actually are able to not just put a Band-Aid on cancer. You're able to actually begin to help heal at the source of the issues. And so it's such a privilege to know you. It's such a privilege to throw in behind you, because we know that, yeah, you are coming from a place of actually being in touch with the real needs on the ground. This isn't just a drop-in mission because of the news. You've been there a long time, and you care about this country. I mean, just spending time with Jeremy and Jessica, Zach and I have been able to just hear their hearts for this country, and it is home for you. I mean, this is home. When you leave the U.S., we send you back home, and I love that it isn't a mission for you. It's your people. It's your country. You love it, and in a sincere way. And so it's such a privilege to get to partner with you to help meet this need. And we just all appreciate so much your voice there and how you've shaped our view of that part of the world in a unique way. And I know we've got to go, but I want to say one more time, the way to help is to go to preemptivelove.org. And if you go there, I really encourage you. We want to see a long-term dent made in Preemptive Love's mission and needs there. And so if you can give monthly, I think that would be the most powerful way to give, but whatever you can do to resource also the relief efforts of this time right now, that's great as well. So Anne, is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
I just know that there's a generation of Esthers out there who are called for such a time as now, who know that indifference never writes a different story, and who are committed. If it's exactly about this, empowering women to write a different story, both on this side of the ocean, on the other side of the ocean. And I know that a generation of Esthers are going to rise up for such a time as now and use what's in their hand, put it in their pocket, and pull out a miracle. We're called to be ravens in the desert, not rockets. We're going to link arms with Jeremy and blow the lid off this thing.
Let's do it, guys. This is such a privilege. I think it is beautiful. My kids were asking me, we're actually on vacation right now, which it just feels kind of wrong. And yet it's not an accident that this is when Fallujah was liberated. And I looked at my little girl, headed out to the beach in her bathing suit, and she was like, "Mom, where are you going?" And I sat her down, and I was like, okay, this is kind of heavy, but I want you to know that as you go to the beach and enjoy the ocean and the sand and your cousins, that there are people in sand across an ocean that they are in suffering, and we're going to go advocate for them, and we're going to go try to take care of them. And she started laughing. She was like, "You should go do that, Mom." Don't worry, it's okay, because she was kind of like, "Why are you leaving?" And I just think this is it. Like, it's this tension of comfort that we have been so almost anesthetized with, that we have been numbed and taken out of suffering to the extent that we forget what suffering means. Real, deep, hard. You're burying your children suffering. And so we get to be a part of that today. We get to rise up in our comfortable places wherever we are and make a dent. And I can't wait to see what news stories will come out. The soap company, actually, it has a website, Jeremy, is that right? It has a website now?
sisterhoodsoap.com.
Oh, that's a good website. Clear. We got it. Do not forget it. Sisterhood Soap, and you can go buy soap if that's the only thing you can do. The soap is actually decently affordable considering you're shipping it from Iraq. Jeremy, I don't exactly know how that happens, but go and buy soap from these women. Just in some way today, make a dent in what's happening over there. And so let me pray, and we'll sign off. God, it is for your glory that we want every breath, every decision, every moment to exist for. God, we want to take the things that you've given us, the unbelievable blessing that you've given us, and we want to pour it into the place where there's need. And I just pray, God, that this small contribution of some women and men around their computers would actually start to make a dent in the enormous crisis and need that's happening right now in your world, in Iraq and in Fallujah. God, I thank you for Jeremy and the many people that serve alongside of him. I pray for protection for their family as they do the work that you have put in their soul to do. And for the rest of us, God, that get to partner, would we commit to pray? Would we commit to to stay informed about what is happening to your people around the world, God. Would we fight for them? Would we love the least of these, God? And would we rise up in times of need and in times of plenty, God? Would we give out of that overflow as well? We love you and thank you for letting us be part of your story in your world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you guys. Talk soon. Mwah.